I think what we need right now is a new breed of rebels. People who ride electric bikes or who drive electric cars as an act of defiance against the oil companies. Gas tax? Pfft, forget that. Not only are we not burning gas, if we have solar, we are not even paying for power. Haha, you can't tax the sun. You can't take the sky from me. Yeah, a little nod to Firefly there. Hi, I'm Carlin. Welcome to the Daily Rant Show, sometimes referred to as Rants, a not very daily video broadcast. I live off-grid and sometimes I have stuff to rant about, but usually not every day. When it happens, it'll be here. I might lightly edit these. I'll try to keep them short. Well, short-ish, right? I'll be dropping these randomly in between my normal video content. Whatever normal means. Anyway, let me know if you like these. Maybe I'll make more of them. And now, on with the rant. Arrgh. Yeah, it's another day. I ended up leaving the computer running, which means I left the inverter going, so then I got to leave the fan going. That was nice, but I left it all running last night, overnight. Usually I shut everything down overnight because that's 8 or so hours of power that I could save for the next day. So I was like, well, yeah. I had a video uploading, and last week and the week before I was actually about a week ahead. So I was able to upload the video and then schedule it for going live ahead of time. So then I was like, okay, so that one's up there. And then this weekend I was like, I don't even have a video, and it was Friday and Saturday. I'm like, oh no, I gotta make a video. And I think the problem was I didn't feel like I was finished what I was working on, so I was like, well, it's kind of stupid to upload something in the middle, but yeah, anyway. So I did, anyway. But, yeah, the internet, it's... Some days I just, like, I don't know what to do. It's like, you're like... I got a Wii boost, so that's giving me a boosted signal, but I'm behind a hill, so it's just... Generally, it's just crap. Is probably the best way to say it. Yeah, I'll look over and I'll see, ooh, the light's on. That means I should have internet. And by the time I go over and hit the F5 key to refresh the web page, it's already dropped off again, you know. It's like the cameras could shoot at least 1080p, right? Some of the stuff I got could do 4K. I usually shoot 720p and then I upload it at half of that. So if you take 720p, cut it in half, so that's 360p. You know, it's slightly better than VHS, but not as good as DVD resolution kind of thing. But by cutting it in half, you're actually cutting the file size into fourth, because it's a half vertical plus a half horizontal. So if we only look at half of, you know, one of these over here, whatever, right? Yeah, so you're like, well, okay, so I'm decimating the quality just trying to get it to upload. And plus I'm running heavy compression to get the file sizes smaller. So a nice video would be 500 megs maybe to upload. I'm uploading stuff that's 50 megs, you know, so like a tenth of the quality of what it could be. Plus I'm cutting it in a quarter. And it's still taking like 10 hours to upload a 20-minute video. Yeah. There has been times that I have ridden my bike to town, so that's about a 3-hour ride, roughly an hour and a half each way. I can ride to town, take my phone, upload the video on the phone in town because I get way better signal there, and get home and it'll be faster than what it would have been to upload it here. Okay. So sometimes I do that, but at the same time, it's like, well, if it would work this has been something a lot of people have said, well, if you just run it overnight, well, if it would work, yeah. But what ends up happening quite often is it'll time out. It'll run for an hour and then just stop. And so if you're looking at it, you reach over, hit the F5 key, and then you restart the whole process again. And quite often it'll pick up where it left off. Or, I've seen times like, it'll say is okay, it's 75% done, but it gets stuck. So you restart it, and sometimes it'll start over at 45 instead of 75. So you lost something. And sometimes it'll like, oh no, there was another one, so it jumps ahead 10-15% in the next minute. Sometimes it doesn't. It just, no, whatever that was, I don't know what that was. We're just going to start over again. And I've had to get up to 95% and completely start over. Okay. And it's like on my plan, I've got unlimited internet. But what that means is I'll get the first segment at high speed, and then after that, it's reduced speed. Okay. Well, I'm getting 50 gigabytes at high speed, which is quite a bit. So if I looked at just what I needed, check my email, upload a video once a week, watch a couple videos on YouTube to stay a little bit aware of what's going on in the world. And another big one is like, the computers need updates once in a while, and the phone decided it needs updates like every day. It seems like it always wants to do updates. So you're like, well, okay, that's chewing into my bandwidth. And then if I do use up my high speed, then I can drop down to low speed. Well, that's kind of a joke, because quite often I don't even see a speed difference between high speed and low speed. In theory, it's slower, but my internet is so bad out here anyway that it's slow speed and slightly slower is kind of what it is. So, I always think, man, if they could measure how much speed I'm actually getting, they shouldn't even count that as high speed, And yet I'll turn around and there'll be a week sometimes, or it'll just be flying for the whole week. And then next day, nope, not going to work at all, Sometimes there's a time of day that it doesn't work. Like sunrise, like now, it's the sun's like been up for about 20 minutes now. Sometimes sunrise will kind of jam the signal, it seems like, and yet that's not even consistent. Some days it works just great, or some days I wake up early and I'll be like, I'll try it out. All of a sudden it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. It'll just be singing along for a couple hours, and then sometimes not. It's I grew up as a farmer. Well, I grew up as a farm kid. I didn't have any of the stress of being a farmer. I just got, I had 1,000 acres to play on my snowmobile in the winter. It was great. So the whole idea, it's daytime, you get outside and you make hay, right? And I try to do that a lot. Like, if I'm going to be outside welding, I try to get out in the morning before 8 o'clock in the morning. That's not exactly the crack of dawn or anything like that, but if I can get up and get outside, drag the bike out, drag the tools out, and get some welding done, and then quit at noon before it gets too hot, because like today it's forecast to be about 94 degrees, something like that. Okay. And if it's brutally sunny, it's like, no, I don't really want to be out in the sun today, right? Yeah. So I'll try to get out early, and then I'll come in and I'll do something. But like days like yesterday, it's like, well, I really needed to get the video done. I'd already done I shot it all, kind of edited it, get it all put together. Okay, I need to get it uploaded. And, in theory, yeah, you could walk away, but you come back an hour later and it hasn't done anything. So you kind of smack the keyboard and give it a little, go on. Then it'll go again, Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of annoying, There are days where I would probably, sell body parts to go get Starlink. And then other days it's like, well, yeah, but if I get the Starlink, it's X amount of dollars, like $600 to buy the hardware. And then you get the monthly service. It's actually more than I'm paying for my cell phone. Okay. So I'm trying to push that back as long as I can, and it's like, well, and then if I do get Starlink, in theory, I could cancel my cell phone, right? But then what happens if I, decide, okay, I'm going to go on another bike trip, or I just catch a ride to town? Well, if I don't have a cell phone, then, I can't use the internet when I'm not here, That would be really funny to drag the Starlink on the bike. I wish they had a little tiny version. That'll be probably in the next 10 years we'll have Starlink on our phones. They've already talked about that. So, yeah, that would be all right. But we're not there yet, Yeah. If wired telephone service was an option, forget broadband. If I had dial-up internet out here, it would be more reliable from what I remember. I mean, typically dial-up worked. It was slow, but it worked. If I had dial-up and it would work consistently. The problem is a lot of web pages will just time out at a point. If it didn't load all the way through, it'll just quit. It's not like, oh, you can go slow. No, it's like if you're not going at least this minimum speed, you're just not going to get there. Yeah, I've got things like if I'm going to test a new version of Linux or something like that, which is what I run on most of the computers, that's a 4 to 7 gigabyte file I have to download in one shot. That doesn't usually work the first time, And yet if I go, either into town here or if we get into El Paso, especially if I can get to a library, I can have that downloaded in about 15 minutes. Or the Walmart. Quite often the Walmart internet is pretty zippy. So, yeah. Anyway, I did have a daily rant, and that wasn't even it. Alright. Alright, so today's daily rant. I'm just going to read it because it's easier. I think what we need right now is a new breed of rebels. People who ride electric bikes or who drive electric cars as an act of defiance against the oil companies. Gas tax? Pfft, forget that. Not only are we not burning gas, if we have solar, we are not even paying for power. Haha, you can't tax the sun. You can't take the sky from me. Yeah, a little nod to Firefly there. Yeah, right? There's days where I think about that. It's like, I look at my old broken down motorcycle. Technically, I could fix it. Reality, it was really not reliable. The first KLR I had when I did the Alaska trip, that bike was really, really solid. This one, a couple years later, their quality was all over the map on those bikes. And this is pretty well known in the forums and stuff. Some bikes just burned oil like crazy. The year before it, didn't burn a bit of oil. Something changed from year to year, and there was little tweaks, just little things that just weren't the same from year to year, like personalities, like you're not the same as your brother, kind of thing. Just something got changed in the mix. And then my bike, I bought it used again, although the first one I bought used also. So it's like, well, what happened to it before? Is it actually bent? Is a possibility, because I had times where I had the worst time with chains on this bike, and it never even had a load on it, where the Alaska bike was just stacked. It was just like, the typical way of how I do things. You take a reasonable amount of stuff and then you double it, and then you hope the bike doesn't break in half, right? So that bike was just loaded stupid. I wore the chain out so much that when I finally changed it, I pulled it out and I looked at it. Half of the rollers were missing on the chain. Yeah, that thing was just completely fragmented. And yet it pulled me down the road. I put the new chain on. I'm like, oh, wow, it doesn't make any noise. This is kind of nice, So, and I had actually carried a chain and sprockets with me, but I didn't want to change it too soon, kind of thing. Because I was up on the gravel, and I knew the gravel and all the stuff on the road, because they put, I forget what it was, they had a chemical they'd spray on the road to help pack it and hold the dust down. I've heard it before, I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, So, the guys who are trying to make their chains last, every time they'd get to a stream, they'd get a cup full of water and throw it on the chain and try to get all the stuff off of it. And me, I had a spare chain. I just knew I was going to change it when I had to, right? So by the time I changed it, I was off of the gravel and back onto the pavement. So, okay, that worked out pretty good, right? I wish I'd kept the first KLR, because I just figured, well, I'll sell it, and when I need another one, I'll buy another one. And this one I got now, it's just never been as reliable as the first one was. Just stupid stuff, it's a good bike. It's not the same bike I used to have. And I look at it, it's like, well, after you have to walk a few times, and this was, the thing is, when I had the KLR, the second one, I also had the truck. And so if one broke down, I could use the other to go either get parts, or, when the bike broke down, I'd catch a ride home, grab my truck, grab some loading ramps, go out and get the bike, bring it home and fix it. Okay. Or there was the time when the truck fuel pump went out. So I jumped on the bike, went into town, got a fuel pump. That wasn't too bad, right? And then, of course, it was the wrong one, so then I had to go back and get it again. Okay. But at least I could do it, right? Without a truck at my ready disposal to go get the bike when it breaks down, I don't think I would feel really comfortable riding the motorcycle to El Paso anymore. And I used to do that every day for quite a while. And after a point, it's just like, it just kept breaking stuff. Yeah, I've had people like, oh, how much would it cost? I'm like, well, if I put $3,000 into it, it still wouldn't be a $1,000 motorcycle. Honestly, I would feel bad selling it for $1,000. So no, it might turn itself into a tractor someday. It's got a 40 horsepower motor, and if it was just going to rip up the property out here, that might be an idea. I thought about that, but yeah. I'm really liking using electric. Solar and electric is renewable. I mean, it's as simple as that. If I've already got solar to run my house, and I can tap some of that to run the bicycle that goes to town, that is the coolest thing ever. I just go whizzing right by the gas station. I have no idea what people are saying, oh, it's gas prices are coming down. I'm like, it was 4, it's 3 something. Okay. I do have a generator that I run the welder on, and I only run the welder. Like when I'm working on the bike, grinding, all of the cutting is solar. I'm running extension cords out there that come from the house, that's coming from the solar. When I actually am ready to weld, then I start the generator, I do the weld, and I shut the generator off, right? So a gallon of gas is lasting me a long time. And this project, I am able to reuse so many of the parts that I already made from the last 3 projects. So a lot of the pieces that I welded for the old chassis, I just chopped them up a little bit, stuck them on here, and welded them back together. So I did way less welding this year than I did 2 years ago when I was building Turtle and the Blue Bike electric trike and a couple of the other in-between projects. There was actually a project that I don't think ever got shown. I was building what was going to be a 2-wheel recumbent bike based on the same school bus seat frame parts. And I remember trying to ride a 2-wheel recumbent a little bit out here, but I don't know if that was even it or if I had cobbled something together to test it. And I think it could have worked. It would have been terrible on this road out here, and that's kind of one of the pain points is everything I do out here has to get the first 6 miles of gravel and sand and whatever. Like, it just rained. There's water washes all over the road again, and it's just kind of a mess. So, or it's washboarded, or it's, you'd be riding along and all of a sudden you realize you're in sand that's, 3-4 inches deep and the bike just grinds to a halt, or, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, I was just thinking there was a 2-wheel recumbent I started building, which a 2-wheel recumbent is out there. There is people that are making and buying and selling 2-wheel recumbents. It's pretty cool, actually. One of the guys in the SunTrip had one. He had a fairly high one where it's almost like if you had a regular bicycle, but instead of sitting where the seat is, you kind of slid the seat forward and leaned back, and then you put your feet out in front of you above, kind of above the front wheel. I'm trying to remember exactly how his was. He was one of the guys on the SunTrip, and then he put his solar panel up above him, which it worked out really good. He was really fast. Plus, he wasn't carrying a whole bunch of stuff, like I was. Yeah, this was a thing where, oh man, it was really hard this year because there was supposed to be another SunTrip like this last week. I don't know if they even did it. Remember we were talking with Florian, the guy from France who organized it, and he was like, man, it was almost not enough people last year, and he was hoping to get more people. He needed more people up front that were willing to pay up front, and it was just the hardest thing to get 8 people together with solar bikes that could get to California, right? And in Europe, they're everywhere. Everybody, people are, I remember one of the videos from European SunTrip. There was a husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, I can't remember if they were married. They each had solar bikes, and they were already in the process of touring all over Europe. And then they heard about the SunTrip, so then they came down and joined. But they were already doing this on their own without the SunTrip. That was just, yeah, like, why wouldn't you? And here, people are like, what is that? They have no idea what you're doing. It's kind of, we got along, it's like, in some things we're like, oh, global leaders, but not anything environmental, anything that's useful kind of thing. I don't know, it's just kind of frustrating. Yeah, why would you pay for fuel for your car? Why would you pay for electricity for your house? And then it's like, oh, a comment just yesterday, I think it was, a new viewer subscriber was checking out my bike project, episode 3 or episode 4 of the Delta trike, and your normal kind of question is, well, does it need a license plate? Oh no, it's a bicycle, and even an electric bike doesn't need a license plate, right? But this is you're just a little bit outside of the normal, and it's confusing, right? We've been so standardized for so long, it's hard to get out of that. It's like, even being an entrepreneur, even having your own business, doing something different. What do you mean you don't go to work every day? And this is in a time when we just came through the pandemic and a lot of people actually did work from home. And yet it's completely unusual still that people could make a living doing something different. It's kind of weird. And then, the last point of the rant, I would think, is insurance. If I put the motorcycle back on the road, I would have to put license plates on it, and I'd have to put insurance on it. All right. Or if I went out, I really wanted, for about 6 months, I was really thinking about something like picking up a used Jeep Liberty or something, right? Now, that may or may not be the best choice, but this was a vehicle I always had my eye on when they first came out. I'm like, that's just kind of cool. I got to drive one a couple times. It's like, yeah. It's not like, the most, what was the Jeep, like the Jeep Cherokee, the old Cherokee, you know, before the Liberty. That was the one the 4x4 guys loved because it actually had a real chassis. The Liberty was more unibody, I think. You know, so it wasn't a hardcore off-road vehicle. Well, I don't really need that. I need it to survive 6 miles of gravel road. For the most part, I don't need, you know, the world's greatest four-wheel drive vehicle, right? But still, this is why I sold the truck in the first place. The truck was running when I sold it. I just looked at it as, if I don't have to go to El Paso for work, I was paying about $80 a month for insurance. Okay, to be legal. And yet, you know, if that truck ever got wrecked, they would not replace the truck with the insurance. Okay. And, you know, I had $300 tires on there. I had Baja BF Goodrich tires, and I still got flats out here because you get the thorns, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm putting on about the best tire I can find, and I'm still getting flats out here. Not as many. You know, I had some cheaper tires for a while, and they got flats regularly. So, yeah, I mean, you're like, well, what do you know, so you got all this money tied up. The road is screwing up the vehicle. If you're hauling water, that's another thing. I was hauling water. It's just beating things up, right? So by changing how I looked at my life out here, my situation, I'm like, well, if I don't have the truck, and if I got the land paid for, or I sold the parts of the land I didn't need anymore, then I didn't really need to work the job that was in El Paso. If I could get rid of the job, I didn't need the truck, then I didn't need to pay insurance. So instead of needing all this money, I kind of scaled it back down. And then the hardest thing was, well, do I need to haul water? And I got to looking at it. I'm like, well, I was already doing rainwater catchment experiments. So, yeah, I was gone most of last summer, but I've gone a couple years now without hauling water. And I'm just catching rainwater or pumping water out of the creek when it was running, or shoveling snow into a tank so that it would melt. You know, that was a rough year. But yeah, at the moment I've got 1,500 gallons of water sitting in the tank. And my drinking water tank is separate from that, and it's nearly full from the last 2 rains we got. So I'm good. I got drinking water at least for 6 months. And we still got monsoon coming. So, yeah. You know, the whole, you look at it as, well, if you don't need this, and you don't need this, and you don't need this, and you don't need this, then why are we doing this over here? So you just kind of like, okay, start over. What do we really need? And, you know, if I catch a ride into town once a month, I can get some of the stuff I need. But most of the stuff I can get from Amazon or Sam's Club. I got a Sam's Club membership. They send me chili and cough drops typically, and oatmeal. You know, it's like, okay, so that gets to the post office. All I gotta do, so that's the biggest push on the bicycle, was setting up the bike for cargo so that I could haul my groceries home from the post office. Okay, once I got that set up, yeah, we're set. So what we need is a new kind of rebels. It's like, you look at it, the whole system is based around a small number of old men who own stock in oil companies. And the oil companies have lobbyists. And there's so much disinformation about how stupid an electric car is. It's like, I still hear people, oh, you know, they're mining the lithium, okay, and they're making these batteries, and then the car gets wrecked, and then it's just wasted. No. Lithium batteries are being reused in hot rods or other DIY projects, and there's companies building around this. I just happened to see one a couple days ago, if I think about, yeah, MaxwellVehicles.com. I saw a video about this. These guys are buying wrecked Teslas because the Tesla is still a car. People still drive too fast and they still wreck them. Okay. My hope is eventually when the self-driving cars take off, as a person on a bicycle who used to ride motorcycles, I trust the robot way more than I trust the guy that's eating his Cheerios driving down the road. Okay. I would put all my faith into Tesla self-driving cars, especially as a person on a bicycle. Okay. Anyway, so this company, MaxwellVehicles.com, no affiliation. I just happened to see the video. What they're doing, they're buying wrecked Teslas and taking all of the electric parts, putting them into ProMaster vans for fleets. Okay. And the guy that did the review, he owns a Tesla Model 3. And so he's like, everything that he did, he's like, that is exactly the sound that the Model 3 makes, because they completely integrated Model 3 parts from the Tesla into this ProMaster van. They were driving a box van, but they can also do a regular ProMaster van, and they were doing some ProMaster vans to make into van life RV vans, right? So you just take out all of the motor. This is kind of interesting because the ProMaster is front-wheel drive, and so the guys that are doing this modified the Tesla drive unit, put it in the front, and it is a front-wheel drive van still, using Tesla motor, Tesla controls, Tesla battery packs. They're just repurposing everything that they can, and then integrating it really well with the original vehicle. Like if inside the vehicle, there isn't any weird things hanging out. They redid the instrument cluster, but it looks kind of the same. You know, it's really well done. Okay. So here you got a business built around building an electric van for a fleet. IKEA is one of their customers, apparently. At least one store. I'm not sure if this is nationwide or just one store. It's a new company. They've only just, I think they're into maybe almost 100 vehicles at this point that they've done the conversion on. Okay. And it's still kind of expensive up front. But if you had a fleet, and if you had, say if you were doing like a UPS kind of a delivery, or if you had a route that you were always delivering your products, like say if you're a Coca-Cola distributor or Frito-Lay or something like that. So you had a van that drove around to all the little stores to deliver stuff, right? You drove the same route every day, so you could know if I had a 150-mile range, I could do that. Okay. Well, if you could do that, you buy this vehicle that's built on recycled parts, or reused parts, basically. That van just got another 100,000-mile life on it, or more, because those batteries are lasting much longer than people thought they were. And a lot of people that are wrecking their Tesla, it's within the first 2 years of being new anyway. And a lot of people, in the reality, yeah, you want a 300-mile range car. You don't drive 300 miles in a week. So you could charge it once a week and you'd be completely fine. Right, so it's, you know, now everybody's got their cell phone. Well, you're used to plugging in your phone once in a while, so it's not that big of a deal to like, well, you know, you get home and you plug your car in. And if you have a house, this is the thing, homeowners should all drive Teslas as far as I'm concerned, because you've already got a house, you drive into the garage, or even if you park it outside, you can put a little charging station outside. They're waterproof. When you get in, you know, when you get home, you plug it in. When you get, you know, when you walk out, oh, okay. The car is plugged in, you unplug it, you roll up the cord, you jump in, and away you go. It's a no-brainer, you know. And then if you own property, put some solar on the roof. I just don't understand why this isn't more of a thing. You know, people should be like, why would you buy smelly gas and destroy our environment? Right? Oh yeah, you know, you're mining lithium. Well, you mine it once per car. You're not mining it every frickin' day you drive your car. Right? And let's say you drive your car for 10 years. The batteries will probably still be pretty good in 10 years. I mean, your 10-year-old car doesn't drive as good as it did when you bought it. So just kind of think about that. There are companies that are taking batteries from wrecks and putting them into still running cars. Okay, so if you had a Tesla and drove it for 10 years, odds are you could find a newer battery pack and put it in your older car because they're still out there. Okay, and in the next 10 years, technology is getting better, so it's reasonable to think that you could go get a better battery for your old car in 10 years. Okay. Or at the end of the battery life, when it's no longer good enough for your car, as somebody who lives off-grid, a used Tesla battery pack would be the best thing I could ever find. Okay, so you drive a car for 10 years, you sell your battery pack to a guy like me off-grid, I could repurpose that battery pack, even if it only had 60% of its life of what it had when it was new. That would be the coolest thing ever out here, right? I could run that for another 10 years. Okay. And they are recycling lithium batteries now. Like, so you reuse it. Eventually, it's like your lead battery. If you take it back, you get a core deposit for it. You buy a new battery. Okay. There's programs that are slowly catching up. That was a little slow. Okay. Well, even Apple, I happened to see a video recently. The Apple iPhones, they have a program now where you can trade in your old phone for a new phone. And they're working towards the point where they could make a new phone based only on recycled components. Not reusing the battery, but grinding up the battery, grinding up the different parts. There's a lot of like gold and aluminum and copper in a cell phone. So they've got robots now that can break the phone down into its individual parts, and then those individual parts then get sent to a specific recycling process that can rebuild it, and then they're able to make the new parts from the recycled parts again. Okay, so it's like, okay, you got your aluminum cans and you got your steel, okay, and normal people. Okay, you turn in your cans. It's much cheaper to recycle an aluminum can and make a new aluminum can than it is to go out and mine aluminum and go through the whole recycling or the whole refining process. Okay, so this is happening. This is like, it's not like, there are so many people that think that Tesla car, when it gets wrecked, it's just scrap, and it goes. They're like thinking the old way. Oh no, there's a huge business around buying the motors from wrecking yards for gas cars and selling them. You can go buy a rebuilt motor, or you can buy a motor from a wrecking yard. Okay, or you can at least take the motor from a wrecking yard and get it rebuilt and then put it in your car. Okay, so I mean, a new car can be $30,000 to $50,000. Well, yeah, you're going to put $1,000 or $5,000 into a rebuilt motor before you replace your car. If you can't afford a new car, there's still mechanics that can do that. Well, now there's mechanics that know how to do the same thing on electric cars. Okay, it's a thing. Just kind of get your head around that. So yeah. So what we need is the rebels that understand this stuff, right? We've got a whole generation or two now of people that grew up with computers. Half of the Tesla is the computer. Okay. So these guys are learning how to make the Tesla parts talk to whatever vehicle it's put into. Another company is EV West. I think it's evwest.com out in California. They've been doing this for years. They buy the wrecked batteries. They got a standing order with the wrecking yards in their area. Hey, if a Tesla comes in, we want the batteries. Okay. They just send a guy out there with a truck and they bring it back. Okay. Now, the guy that's going out there with the truck, it's some kind of a converted vehicle that they've built. Some of them they're doing a lot of Volkswagen vans, old school Volkswagen vans, running Tesla motors and Tesla battery packs in them, or Tesla battery packs and a different motor kind of thing. Yeah, so these guys are out there. I love the story of EV West. They started off more as a hot rod company, And then they started realizing that the most performance-based system they could find was an electric vehicle. So they thought about it, they played around with it, and they were one of the first companies to set a record going up Pikes Peak with an electric conversion based on a BMW, I think, at the time. So they'd put together some setup, and this was this was before Tesla was even around, I think. So they kind of pieced this together on their own, and then they built a system around it, and then they found companies that would sell them the parts. Now it's at the point you could take your car. They built a 1940s or 50s GM pickup. Customer had one. They'd already done the restoration on it, and then they bring it to EV West. EV West put an electric conversion in it, and this thing drives way better than the original vehicle ever did. Right? And I remember that one because when I was a kid on the farm, my dad gave me a 1947 GMC pickup. And sadly, when we sold the farm, it just got left or sold with the farm or something, so, every time I see one of those, it's like, man, we never got ours running. We started working on it, and then we sold the farm before we got to finish it. So that's kind of sad, But you could basically take virtually any vehicle you can think of. There's a guy, Jerry Riggett, I think is his YouTube channel. He took an original H1 Hummer, military surplus vehicle. It had a hole in the ceiling where they'd removed the gun turret that was on it, and he converted it to electric. And he's out, playing around with it a little bit. He says, yeah, it doesn't really have the range that he expected because it's a Hummer, but he's going up the side of this mountain with it, and it's like, this is great. It's not making as much noise. You're still spinning the tires. You still hear the motors whine. You hear the tires spin. You're just not blowing diesel everywhere, And then he gets it home and he plugs it in his garage, and next time he wants to go out and play, it's ready to go. You can now set up your own conversion with a fast charging setup. So, like these guys, Maxwell vehicles, in that case, they did not use the original Tesla charger, which they could have. There was talk about that apparently, but they hooked it up with a regular charger, so you go up to any car charging station, and it just plugs in, and then the computer in the car talks to the computer in the charger and says, "This is me." It's almost like if you remember, the people that can remember phone modems. When you first connected to the internet, you hear the series of squeaks and squat. It sounded like Star Wars talking back and forth. Okay, that was the modem negotiating with the internet provider. It says, okay, I can do this fast, 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 and they talk back and forth, and every time it went up a pitch, and then when it got unreliable, it would come back a pitch, and that accounted for the noise in the phone line. Okay, so it would be like, okay, we can go this fast. The electric car conversion has that same ability. It knows its own specifications. I can handle this fast of a charge. I want to charge to this level. It's kind of like a charge controller on solar. It says, okay, you program it once, and then after that, it's just as dumb as plugging in a gas hose. It's like, okay, plug it in, activate the pump. Usually there's a credit card or something involved. That's just like a gas pump. You identify yourself if you're on a subscription, or the Teslas. I don't know if they're still doing this, but the Teslas were free charging for life when you bought the Tesla, if you went to a Tesla charging station. That's a pretty smart deal. I don't think they're doing that anymore, but okay, there's chargers everywhere now, so it's not a big deal anymore. But you plug it in and it negotiates. And so on your DIY electric car project, these things are now available. You just buy them. Somebody has invented it or figured out how to make it work. You just hook it all up, or you pay somebody to do it. Most people aren't really comfortable doing high voltage wiring. An electric car could kill you, but then so can a gas car. Okay. So it's just, these problems have been solved for about 10 years now. You just buy the parts and you put them in, or you take it to a guy and he puts it in, and now your favorite car no longer burns gas, and it runs better than it used to. Yeah, and it doesn't leak oil all over the place. That's a big one. Is there are so few parts that wear out or leak on an electric car, your reliability just goes through the roof. Yeah. So, yeah. Would I ever want to ride my motorcycle again the way it is now? No. I have considered, could I convert my motorcycle to electric? That's a serious possibility. Although right now I'm liking the electric bikes. So it's more likely I would take an electric bike and set it up to go 30 miles an hour. Because from here to town, it's 15 miles, or 12, 15 miles, something like that. If I could run that road at 30 miles an hour with a full suspension electric mountain bike, that would be all I'd need. Yeah. My goal still is this year to get one of these projects put together. It may not be the Recon that I'm working on now, the Black Delta. Hopefully the one that comes after that will be faster and lighter and more streamlined and have much longer range. If I can set that up with solar and with all of the batteries I've got now, I think it's reasonable that I should be able to get to El Paso, buy a hamburger, and come back in the same 24-hour day. Okay, so that's 100 miles each way, but if I could go 20 miles an hour continuously, which is actually the legal limit for an electric bicycle. If you're speed limited to 20 with electric, if you can pedal faster than that, that's still okay. Okay. So if I could do about 20 miles an hour for the whole ride there, if I left here at 7, I could be there by noon. I could have a couple hours for shopping, leave town by 2, be home by 7. In the summer, I'd still have daylight, the whole trip. I could be running solar on the trike to keep it recharged. That's something I really got good at on the bike trip last year. I did about 4,000 miles. It took a while to get all the parts working and tuned and then get my head tuned. But once I realized, okay, especially in peak solar part of the day, I got to the point I could use less power than the solar was putting in. I could see both numbers on the gauge. So I would just set my cruise control, and I was still pedaling. That's the key. I was still pedaling, but the cruise control would help me maintain that speed. And I could be going, just cruising along if it was mostly level. I was using less power than I was generating, and so that put power back into the battery for into the evening or to replace what I used in the morning. So I was, most of the time I was loaded too heavy. But I could still do pretty good 60-mile days then, pulling the trailer. Okay. When the trailer broke, I had to go get the rental vehicle, pick up the trailer. I hauled the trailer all the way home, and then went all the way back to drop off the rental vehicle. From there, it was about 100 miles. I think it was in Las Cruces, right by White Sands, whichever one is, or Alamogordo. I don't remember. I have to look it up. Anyway, right next to White Sands. So that's where I broke the trailer. So I couldn't get the truck one way. It was actually supposed to be a car, and then at the end they gave me the truck. I'm like, oh, that was really handy because I kind of needed something big, but I couldn't afford it. So I rented a little car, and then they upgraded me to the truck. Hey, okay, we'll take it. All right. So once I got rid of all the extra stuff, I had just, literally just what was on my back and a backpack. I left all my camping gear at home, so I dragged all that stuff home, went back out the truck, dropped the truck off. So I did a 100-mile day on the bicycle with electric but no solar. Got into El Paso, stayed in a room, recharged the bike, And then again, the day after that, I did a 100-mile day all the way home. And because I didn't have solar, I had to ride super conservatively. But I was able to make it. Okay. And I got home, and, battery was just dead, but I made it. All right. So looking at that, if I could have solar on a much lighter setup, and if my goal was just to get to El Paso, buy 20 pounds of beans and rice and get some chili and get a hamburger while I'm there and then get home, I think I could do it in a day. Leave by sunrise, back by sunset. In the summer, I should be able to do it. So that's the direction I'm looking. Wow, this one went a long time. Yeah, rebels. All right. What we need now is a new breed of rebels. People who ride electric bikes or drive electric cars as an act of defiance against the oil companies. Gas tax? Pfft. Not only are we not burning gas, if we have solar, we're not even paying for our power. Haha, you can't tax the sun. You can't take the sky from me. Thanks for watching. More to come. Bye for now. Woohoo! Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some useful ideas there. I've not been talking about this very much lately, but my main source of income has been these YouTube videos. The actual money I make from the ads is quite small. What actually keeps me going is a few people that are helping me out over on Patreon or YouTube members. Just a few bucks every month would sure make a huge difference. So if you get anything out of my content, there's a link down below, or I'll put it up on screen. You can help me out through Patreon, which is a monthly subscription. You can also do YouTube members, or you can just throw me a buck on PayPal once in a while. It all helps. Thank you very much. Bye for now.